Good morning and welcome to Daytona International Speedway, where fans are filing in to see Daytona 500 practice and later today the Hershey's Kisses 300 for the NASCAR Busch Series. But first order of business for us on Speed and for the Speedway today are two practice sessions for the NASCAR Nextel Cup cars. This morning in Daytona, dawn kind of cold and foggy. And right now that fog is burning through and we expect to have cars on the track shortly. Hi everybody, Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond with you once again. Jeff, we're going to see, as we have in every practice session, several different agendas, but what do you most expect to see here?
Right now, Mike, what I'm looking at is a situation where, because these guys have been down here running so much, I wouldn't be surprised if you only see a few cars go out and run very limited amount of laps and put those cars right back in the garage area where they're the safest, because as we get closer to the Daytona 500, unless you have a specific reason to be out there running today, keep her in the garage where she's safe. And that way you can bring her on in Sunday morning and be feeling very good about it. And, hey, guys, if anybody's looking to be a Valentine, today's a good day to do it. Happy Valentine's Day.
Very much so.
And we'll echo that. Now, we saw graphic evidence of that yesterday in practice for the NASCAR Busch Series, where pole sitter Martin Truex Jr. got swept up in Michael Waltrip's problem, and they had a lot of work to do denying the rookie valuable practice time. So we have two sessions today, and Larry, it has taken so long to prepare for tomorrow's Daytona 500. What could you possibly have left to learn?
Well, I mean, here's the deal. These guys have been down here for 10 days. You've been testing at Daytona, Talladega for about 2 months. We've been in the wind tunnel a half a dozen times. The guys have wore the engine dyno completely out. If you're not fast by now, it's not going to happen. This is more of a confirmation practice. Let's just go out there. Let's make sure everything's still good. A lot of these teams put their race engines in last night. We don't want to go out there and tear that race car up. I'm going to echo what Jeff said. The worst thing in the world that can happen is come this far, this long, and on the day before the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl of NASCAR racing, tear that race car up.
We didn't create the fog that's just rolled back in here by going on the air and for our umpteenth hour of coverage. And I want to just express our thanks to all the folks from the NBC TNT production and technical crews and those who've worked with us on Speed Channel, both from the Craftsman Truck Series and all of these practice and qualifying sessions. A record amount of coverage in length from Daytona. I think nobody can complain about not seeing enough racing this week, and we're very proud and happy to bring it to you. We've got a lot of folks that are tired, and they're going to have their best for this afternoon and for tomorrow for the 500. It's been a long week's labor of love for all of us here in Daytona.
The real problem with the weather conditions we've got here right now, as far as on the racetrack, if the cars were out there, they would be just fine. But you just almost can't even practice here. NASCAR even mandates it without a spotter. And right now up here in the booth, we cannot even see turn 3. So that's really, you see it right there. That's pretty much the view we've got. That's the same view that the spotters would have right above us. So that's the real problem. Plus, NASCAR control tower, they need to be able to see the whole racetrack just in case there's a problem.
You see the pace car out there dimly through the fog, cutting its way through.
Yeah, Buster Alton right there making laps, again, letting the tower up here right beside us kind of take a look and see what they can see, because, again, safety is the key thing, and if you can't be out there in a pack of cars and be able to have your spotters clear you properly, we don't want you out there.
One option NASCAR may have is to put a group of cars out behind the pace car, get some heat going around the racetrack, and I won't say vortex theory this early in the season, but I promise you you're going to hear it as we move on. Let's move on down to the Nextel Cup garage and Steve Burns.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike Joy. Now, you guys have been talking about the agendas of these race teams. What will they do in these final two practices after all the testing and all the work leading up to tomorrow's Daytona 500? I just spoke to Chad Canals, the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson. He'll start 6th on Sunday, but Chad has said they have made some pretty aggressive changes to this race car, and he thinks he'll know very quickly whether they've gone in the right direction or the wrong. Either way, they don't plan on running a lot of laps in this first practice, but they do have a very specific agenda to see if there is any gain at all to be had. Let's check in now with Bob Dillner.
Well, Steve, the National Guard crew heating up all the fluids on the number 16. Greg Biffle, your pole sitter for the Daytona 500, 32nd in yesterday's practice. What's the plan of attack for today's session?
Well, just check out this new Roush Yates engine, make sure it's running good and everything's good. A little bit of a spring change in the front, and we're just going to check the car out, make sure it doesn't have any tire rubs, and see if it handles decent today. And I think we might sit out the next practice if we're happy with it.
30-second quick, as I mentioned yesterday, but that really doesn't make a difference, does it?
Well, yesterday we were just we went out an old set of tires, wanted to see how it handled on old tires, and just finished the fuel mileage run out, and ended up with about 45 laps on a set of tires, which is pretty good.
Greg said practices here during the last few sessions can get pretty nerve-wracking, guys.
Out of the fog, into the smoke. Oh, there we go. A little later on, final practice for the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series. This is the next to final practice that you are seeing right now, as soon as weather conditions permit. They may collapse this schedule somewhat, but they're unable to delay it because that would run into the start of the Hershey's Kisses 300 a little later on for the NASCAR Busch Series. So we'll be here with you, weather or not. Speed Channel coverage of the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series practice from Daytona International Speedway is brought to you by New Levitra. New choice? Here now. Ask your doctor today. Well, one thing that is not going up here is the ceiling. In fact, it is coming down, and the clouds are rolling in, Bob Donor.
We're down here in the garage area with Robbie Gordon talking about today's practice sessions. How are you going to actually go into them? Conservative, or are you going out there to really feel what this car has?
Well, I think it's important to do both. I think the most important thing is obviously the Daytona 500. We've been across the board on gears and stuff, and we think this is our best package. We stuck a race engine in it now, which is new right now in NASCAR Cup racing, because normally you're stuck with one engine the whole time. But at Daytona, after the 125, you're allowed to change your engine. We stuck a new engine in last night. We put our best gear package, what we think, in there. The car's been a little bit tight all week. We freed it up a little bit more. Really want to get a good feel what it's like, but at the same time, we don't want to be involved in any incidents, because we think that the singular wireless car is pretty fast.
New crew chief Chris Andrews right here. So I want to know, these final practices, more nerve-wracking for you or for this guy right here?
Probably Chris. This is his first time as a engineer, crew chief in the Cup level, where it's been his own deal to make the decisions, and he's made some good decisions. Unfortunately, our result on Thursday didn't show, and we got a hole poked in the nose of the car, but we think we're going to be pretty good, to be honest with you.
Hey Chris, will you be biting your nails during this practice session?
Sorry?
Will you be biting your nails during this practice session?
No, I don't think so. I haven't yet.
This team will roll off 30th in the Daytona 500, but they're still looking for a little bit more speed today, guys.
Thanks, Bob. Right now, we know that turns 1, 2, and 3 are out there, but we cannot see them from the tower. Not at all. They are socked in, fogged in. The forecast for today calls for showers and scattered thunderstorms, and then heavy thunderstorms tonight. This area could get as much as 1 inch of rain tonight, but all of the forecasting and computer modeling that's been done indicates that both the 300 and tomorrow's Daytona 500 will get in, although there may be a brief interruption here and there for some showers.
I just want to follow up on Robbie Gordon's comments here just a little bit, because there is a select group of people in that garage area that would definitely love to see this racetrack get open for a few laps of practice, and that's the engine builders, the engine tuners. A lot of teams, I think we had Jeff Burton on trackside last night. He said they treated yesterday like it was their final practice because they had been watching the weather forecast for this morning. But a lot of teams, like Robbie Gordon's team, they did not change engines until after practice yesterday. And teams that I walked through the garage area this morning, Bobby Labonte, Ryan Newman, Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, Jamie McMurray, all of those teams had changed engines. So even though these guys are professionals, and normally you don't have a problem, even if you start a race with an engine that has not been on a racetrack, you still like to get out there just to make sure there's not something that's leaking or you don't have a problem.
You're exactly right, Larry. And all it is really a peace of mind. That's what you're going for. That is what Jeff Burton and his guys already have in case, they didn't get a chance to run today. And as far as the guys at RCR, Richard Childers Racing, they would like to have that opportunity just to run a few laps to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And again, the gear selection. Sometimes, even though engine combinations are put together identical, Every engine has its own little characteristics, its own little quirk as far as tuning on it. So a couple laps here, make sure you get it exactly like you want it.
Speaking of RCR, let's get down to Steve Burns.
Thanks, Mike. Kevin Harvick will roll off 10th for Richard Childress Racing. He's in the race car, getting set to go out on the racetrack. Todd Barrier, the crew chief. Right now, the fog looks pretty dense. Let's talk about your game plan when we get on the racetrack.
Yeah, well, when we get on the track, you know, first off, this Jim Goodrich Monte Carlo has been really well all weekend. Run good, you know, we've been in really good positions. We hadn't finished exactly the way we wanted to in the races and stuff, but so we hadn't worked a lot. Mainly right now we have our race engine in, race transmission, race gear, changed hubs, you know, and all that good stuff, everything that we're going to run the 500-mile race with. So ideally we just want to go out there, get a few laps in, shake the car down, make sure we have no vibrations, no leaks, no anything rubbing or anything that we haven't found up to this point. But pretty much I think we got what we got at this point, and you want to keep practice to a minimum. It's kind of like sticking your hand in a snake's mouth, you know, and asking not to get bit. So, you know, we're just trying to keep all that down, keep a car in good shape, and that's the plan right now.
Todd, when you got to Daytona, after all the testing, all the wind tunneling, you know, all that, have you been able to stick to your game plan pretty much, or does it change from day to day? Do you have to constantly reassess what you're doing?
Well, you stick to your game plan in a sense, but I mean, you know, you kind of got to watch the weather, you know, and it's going to be hot like it was in the 125s. I mean, ideally you're going to lose the front end more so maybe you have to compensate some for that, or then looking at the weather for tomorrow, maybe you think you back part of that up. But, I mean, luckily we've been pretty well on script as far as our game plan has went. Everything has went good up to this point. But, you know, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot either, so you got to be careful what you say.
Todd, would that script include a Daytona 500 victory?
Well, by all means it does, you know, and I think the car's good enough to do it. You know, we've got a car that's been in the position to do anything we wanted to do. We just hadn't made the right choices at the end or done the quite, or had the help or whatever it's take to do it. You don't know how it's going to fall out, but ideally right now the win would be what we're shooting for and hopefully be here Monday.
All right, good luck, Todd. Let's go to Bob Dillner.
Steve, Elliott Sadler's team was one of 8 that sat out yesterday's final practice session for the Nextel Cup cars. Now Elliott is strapping in behind the wheel of his M&M's car, so you're ready to go at it for the final times before the 500?
Oh, yeah, I think we're really good on setup, and we didn't really change much since Thursday. We just took yesterday's practice off to make sure we had plenty of time to put our steam in for the Daytona 500, but the M&M's 4 car's good. We're just going to run it today, get a good fuel mileage check, make sure the motor's tuned like it should be, and that's pretty much it.
The guys told me yesterday, I asked them, why aren't you practicing? And they said, why should we? This car is absolutely awesome. It is still as good as it was in the 125s.
Oh, yeah, and we even think we found a little bit more to kind of add to it handling-wise, so it's good, and I don't want to take any chances out there. You know, anything can happen, and we don't really want to go to the back of the field now. We got such great track position, and we know our car's going to be good, and don't really want to mess this motor up either. So the guys at the engine shop has done a good job getting motors down here all week for everybody, and so we might just run a few laps, get a good tire read, and just kind of go through the motions and just wait for tomorrow.
Question for you, are you superstitious?
I have this week. I've seen a lot of 38 stuff going on this week, like on different buildings and cabs and stuff going around. It seems like that number keeps coming up a lot of different places, so it might be our week.
Here's some other numerology for you guys in the booth to consider. Todd Parrott was Dale Jarrett's crew chief in '96 and in 2000. That's a 4-year spread. Of course, it's 2004. He's the crew chief for Elliott Sadler. Todd says he's going back to victory lane.
And you know, speaking of RCR, though, going back to Todd Barrier's comments, I know the years that I came here with Richard Childress Racing, especially with Dale Earnhardt, when you knew you always had a good package, the last thing Dale Earnhardt needed was more practice laps at Daytona. Other than on qualifying day and the 125-miler day and the Daytona 500, I wish fog set in the whole time. We didn't want no practice.
Well, we've now lost Lake Lloyd, which is halfway across the infield. I think it's out there, but we can't see it from here. We're about to lose the weather flag in the center of the infield as Jimmy Johnson and Greg Biffle talk it over with the reigning Cup champion, Matt Kemp. I look through the Nextel Cup garage as the track should be open for practice, but the cloud cover becomes thicker and denser. The color to look for in that garage looks just like the sky. Gray primer. We saw some on the left front fender of Jimmy Johnson's car. Likely one reason Chad Knaus wants to go out and practice. Some of it due to adjustment, and in some cases on some drivers due to calamity throughout the week. But the the cars are never ready until they roll them on the line on Sunday.
Exactly right, Mike. But the other thing is, too, when you get through running as many laps as they have around this place, a lot of times the cars get that basically a sandblasted look. And before the 500, every sponsor and every team would like to have their colors just, bright and fresh. So for a lot of these teams, once this fog does lift and the practices are over with, look for the body guys to go in there and do a little bit of fluffing and buffing. So tomorrow morning when they roll them out on the line here, they'll look like a brand new penny.
And that includes the driver who was runner-up in last year's Winston Cup Championship. He's with Steve Burns.
And we've dragged Jimmy Johnson out of his high-level meeting with Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle. Now, most of the crew chiefs and drivers we've talked to said, well, we're just going to make sure everything's okay, no vibrations. But Chad told me, Chad Knaus, your crew chief, that you guys have made some pretty aggressive adjustments this morning.
Well, we're really happy with the package that we have, and handling is going to be such a key that we're going to try some off-the-wall stuff and see if we stumble onto something. If we don't and things don't work out as we hope they do and we can find something better, we know we've got a great package to go back to. So, we just don't want to sit still and not make any changes, because everybody in this garage area is working so hard to find an advantage that we're just going to go to work as well and see if we can find something new for the Lowe's car.
Jimmy, you've been so competitive since you got into this division, but I've heard younger drivers like yourself still say we learn something every time we're out there in practice. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I even learned a lot yesterday in the IROC race.
Which was pretty wild, by the way.
That was a blast. That's what we're over here having this high-level meeting about, is all the fun we had in the IROC race between Matt and I. But you're always learning, and I think somebody back when I got started racing off-road trucks made a comment to me that the day you stop learning is the day you need to hang up your helmet, and I believe that's true, because there's new rules, new packages, stuff's always evolving and changing, and if you ever have the mindset that you kind of know it all, I think that's when it's time to hang it up, because there's always somebody that's trying harder or has figured something else out, maybe that's younger than you or around you, that's going to beat you. So you just got to keep working hard.
Speaking of high level, I've been told that Jeff Hammond would like to make a comment. Go ahead, Jeff.
Steve, what I'd like to know right now is that the IROC race he mentioned yesterday, I'd like to know what he was thinking when he got turned and looked out his driver's door and saw everybody coming at him, what he was thinking about that time.
I'll ask him that very question. Jeff Hammond wants to know about that IROC race, and he said when you got turned and were looking back at the field, what were you thinking?
Luckily, I was so hard on the gas, there was smoke everywhere and I couldn't see much. I saw a red nose come in and I got a little bump, but I was thinking I'm glad that I've crossed the start-finish line and I've collected my points, because there's a lot of money on the line for that Crown Royal Series this year, and that was a great race. I really think there's going to be great things to come for that series, especially going to the new tracks that we're going to go to, and it's going to be a blast.
Hey, thanks for your time. Back to your high-level meeting. Let's go to Bob Dillner.
And now I am with Jimmy Johnson's teammate on the Hendrick organization, Brian Vickers, the rookie. But we're not talking about racing here. We're actually talking about Valentine's Day. Did you get all your roses and all your phone calls done?
Got it taken care of. Called my sister and my grandmother, my mom, tell them Happy Valentine's Day. And, yeah.
You're so sweet.
Yeah, well, I got to be. That's just how I am.
There's not going to be any love out in that racetrack today, though, is there?
I didn't get any roses from any of these guys. I don't know what the problem is.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
How about this practice session coming up here? You're learning so much down here, running with these Cup boys. What are you looking for in these sessions?
Just some experience, to earn these drivers' respect. I thought about putting a decal on my yellow rookie stripe that says "Help me," because it seems like nobody wants to work with me. That's part of it. You learn, and you just got to go out there and stay out of trouble, drive smart. The car's handling pretty good. We're trying to get it suck up a little bit better. And the biggest thing is just, is get these other drivers to feel comfortable around you so they'll work with you.
Scott Riggs, another rookie, said the same thing to me the other day, and he said he was going to try to get all the rookies together and say, hey, let's draft together.
Yeah. Some of the rookies and I've worked really well together. It's going to be a tough Best Rookie of the Year challenge this year. There's a lot of good drivers and good cars.
Have you talked to any of your teammates about what to do to get some help out there?
Yeah, I have. I talked to Jimmy and Jeff and Terry. They've all helped me a lot. They're going to work with me, but there's really nothing you can do. I mean, Jimmy's like, well, you got to show forward progress and they're working with you, but to show forward progress, they got to be working with you. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's tough. The biggest thing is just drive smart. Don't do anything reckless. Don't be all over the racetrack. Make these guys feel comfortable around you, and they'll work with you.
So even your teammate won't help you unless you're looking good out there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not nice.
No, it's not. Not at all.
I think you're going to have to talk to Rick about that a little bit.
Yeah, we already had a discussion about that.
Well, how about that? Not many friends down here in the garage area for Brian Vickers, even on Valentine's Day, guys.
Well, there is no love in this weather forecast right now. Our vision is now limited from the tower to half of pit road and the entrance to pit road. We can't see the exit of pit road, and that's about the best of it. Is what you're seeing is what we're seeing right there.
Looks like the best place to hang out is the gourmet coffee tent. A lot of love there.
I thought I saw DW down there in line.
More than likely.
We'll send a runner, and we'll be right back. Tune in to Speed Channel tonight, 8 p.m. for a special edition of Inside Winston Cup. Alan, Johnny, Kenny, and Michael welcome Kevin Harvick and Dale Jarrett tonight at 8 p.m. live on Speed.
You know, just to talk about this teammate situation, this has been kind of an ongoing saga. You know, Tony Eury Sr. was pretty upset, Dale Earnhardt's crew chief at Michael Waltrip. And I guess last night, spotting for Mike Skinner in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race, you know, I watched him and Travis try to work together, but it's almost become impossible. When you've got a pack of 25 cars, 3 wide, 2 wide, 4 wide, the inside line's moving, outside line's moving. I mean, it's almost physically impossible to even work with anybody, your teammate or anybody else.
The race last night was the closest thing to a mob scene that I've seen in a long time.
Somebody forgot to tell them on lap 2 that it was a 100-lap race.
Yeah, right. Bob Dillner with a man who's a threat to win here tomorrow.
Yeah, Ricky Rudd sitting patiently inside his Motorcraft Ford right now. And Ricky, I know everybody wants to get out in that racetrack. How bad are a lot of changes to this car going into the final sessions?
Well, it's quite a few changes these guys have been making. You know, we got a really fast car. The other day we were into 125. They had quite a bit of it, but the car got real tight, and they've been working on it, trying to fix that. About lap 25, we started losing the front end. I think they made some big gains on it. We got one more try. We'd like to make a stab at it and see if we can't get it close to being perfect as possible, which is what you're going to need to be able to do to move forward out there on Sunday. So we need to practice. I think it's going to happen. Just got a little delay here.
You got hung out to dry in the 125s, leading the race. Elliott Sadler, a couple people got by you. How can you trust somebody to draft with you, and how do you know when they are going to?
Well, actually, I didn't get hung out. I started losing the handle about lap 15, and I hung on to about lap 22 or 23. And, you know, I couldn't keep the car on the bottom of the racetrack, and it just slid up the racetrack. And, they weren't having that same problem, so they were able to just drive, just keep their momentum and drive underneath of me. And I'd been struggling quite a few laps before that, and finally it slid up the racetrack, and they went on. And I had to fight it the rest of the race, and that's what we're working on now, trying to get it where it doesn't go away. Some guys have figured it out, some guys haven't.
Ricky Rudd is one bad dude. He's got the Terminator on his helmet. Steve Burns.
Well, Bobby, from Ricky Rudd to Tony Stewart. Now, Tony, when I talked to you at the beginning of Speed Weeks, you said you were slow, but you looked awful good in the 125s. How do you feel heading into the Daytona 500?
We're gaining ground on it. Yesterday was a big day for us. The guys back at the shop at Joe Gibbs Racing, like I said earlier in the week, I mean, they won't stop till they find something, and these guys have been busting their butts. Trying to find something to make the Home Depot Monte Carlo faster. And they are. We're gaining ground on it. We're not exactly where we need to be yet, but man, I tell you what, they've worked hard, and they've gained a ton of ground for us. I mean, we were actually passing cars pretty good yesterday, and I was worried. I mean, I figured when the temperatures cooled down and the track got more grip in it and the handling wasn't going to be such an issue, that we might be in trouble again. But man, yesterday the car was much better. So we got to thank the guys in the motor room back at the shop. They're really working hard for us.
Tony, we can officially call Joe Gibbs coach again. We saw him here yesterday. Has it felt any different? A lot of people have asked me that question. Has it felt any different to you working with Joe Gibbs now that he's with the Washington Redskins?
Not really. I mean, it's, Joe's still here in the same capacity he's always been here. I mean, he's probably the biggest cheerleader you could ask for this team. So, as much as, I'm sure he's kind of missing being here every day, but, he's still here just about as much time as he normally is during a Speed Week period. But, we're excited for him. I mean, it's so exciting to see how excited he is to be back in coaching. And, we got a great team. I mean, Jimmy Maycar moving to the team manager position a couple of years ago, and JD, his son, JD's going to do a great job for us. So, even though it's a time where we're going to miss Joe a lot, we're kind of excited about, JD leading the program and, him and Jimmy working together to see what we can do.
You know, a question I'm not going to ask you? I'm not going to ask you what it would feel like to win the Daytona 500. We'll just wish you luck.
That's good. After being here for 9 straight days now, we're tired of answering what it would be like. just ask us what it feels like after we win one of these things for the first time.
That's a deal. Thanks for your time, Tony.
All right, bud. Thank you.
There you go. You think Tony's tired of that question? Look at this list of drivers who are still seeking their first Daytona 500 victory after many years of trying.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky Rudd has never had a restrictor plate win. He did win a 125-mile qualifying race back in 2000, but never won here or Talladega. But, you know, Mike, Jeff, we had Ricky on our trackside show last night. To me, a stat that don't gets documented enough about Ricky Rudd, tomorrow will be his 717th consecutive Nextel Cup start. Now, that 21, it's been to victory lane here in the Daytona 500 4 times, but the last time was 28 years ago. Who could ever forget that finish? Coming to the start-finish line to take the checkered flag, the old Silver Fox, David Pearson, and Richard Petty.
I was standing in the Wood Brothers pit as that race unfolded, and it came down to Richard and David. Benny Parsons was a lap back. He was a full lap back in third, and the calamity when the crash occurred out of the view of the pit, and then the jubilation when David put the clutch in and kept the car running after Richard Petty's car had spun and stalled, and as Pearson lumbered across the line in a 200-mile-per-hour race at about 15 miles an hour. The jubilation in that pit, everybody who was standing there got swept up in the run to victory lane, and I knew then, this is where I want to be the rest of my working life. This is as good as it gets.
You got that right. Larry, you can attest to this also. Mike, you've been in the victory lane many times with many drivers. You were there in 1989 with Darrell, and I were able to go to victory lane here. Winning at Daytona, the jubilation, the excitement, the electricity that goes through the pit area and out of the grandstands down to victory lane is just something to behold and be a part of. That's what it's all about. And I think it's been so appropriately called the Great American Race by Ken Squire for a reason, because I've won a lot of other places, but getting the victory lane here is so special.
And just to put that streak in perspective about Ricky Rudd, 717 consecutive starts, that started at Riverside in January of 1981. We interviewed Brian Vickers a while ago. He wasn't even born.
There is hallowed ground, Gatorade Victory Lane at Daytona International Speedway, and that is the goal of every driver in today's and tomorrow's race. Next Sunday, all the bells, all the chimes, all the whistles, and boogity, boogity, boogity. NASCAR on Fox returns. It's the Subway 400 at Rockingham. Next Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, the Subway 400.
Cannot wait.
Bob Dillner with the defending champ.
That's right, and that'd be Michael Waltrip sitting inside his race car, just waiting patiently with nothing else to do but to come and talk to the Speed Channel cameras. And Mikey, what do you think about these practice sessions coming up here today?
Well, our car's right. It's been good ever since about Wednesday afternoon. I'm real confident in it, so just a matter of running in a new engine and confirming that we've got the right gear in the back. And I'm testing out a new helmet.
It doesn't look too good. I think you need to pull it down once you go out in the racetrack.
I might follow that advice, Bob. Thank you. You're very perceptive, you know.
Sometimes I'm a smart guy, but tell me about yesterday. You sat out in the practice session, basically just to change motors and get the nice old big old power plant in this car.
Yeah, our race engine actually, Richie Gilmore says, has more power than what we've had in here so far. That's encouraging. We learned what we wanted to in the first session. The car was excellent on Thursday, and then we made just some minor changes to it yesterday. Learned what direction we needed to go with those changes. So no practice would probably help us because we've been really good and our tire wear is really good and other people are struggling. So there's smart people in this garage. If we don't get to practice and those smart people don't get to try more stuff, you know, they might struggle a little bit tomorrow where we think we'll be right.
Hey, so much to do about you and Dale Jr. in that 125 there. That all gone now?
Well, you know, Dale Jr. and I never had a problem. We've always said to one another that the 125s it's just practice. You know, we have to learn what it takes to be successful on Sunday. In order to learn what we want to learn, you better try some things on Thursday. So I was you know, it was cool with me. He passed me. He had to get to the front in order to win the race. Jeff Gordon come out of the pits, and I got kind of wadded up behind him, and JR made a great move and got the win. So we're cool. We don't have any problems, and we understand the importance of teamwork. And you have to believe, we've showed in the past, that we're going to put DEI and this organization's needs, Budweiser, Napa, all the people that make all this stuff work, ahead of our own individual needs. And we'll work as a team and let the best car win at the end.
These guys are a good team. They're also a good family. And what do families do best sometimes? Fight, guys.
Michael Waltrip will be on the special edition of Inside Nextel Cup tonight at 8 o'clock, right here on Speed. It's Ben Affleck climbing out of the Monte Carlo pace car. Buster Otten giving him a VIP ride around the Speedway. He's the Grand Marshal for tomorrow's Daytona 500. Still foggy here, although visibility is improving. I think that's turn 4 out there. Maybe not. Visibility is improving here at Daytona. Not quite enough to put cars on track, but now we have a view of the entrance to turn 1 and the exit of turn 4 again. So we've heard from the defending champ of the Daytona 500. Let's hear from the defending champ of what is now the Nextel Cup Series. Here's Steve Burns.
All right, thanks, Mike. That's with Matt Kenseth. And Matt, before we talk about the Daytona 500, I want to talk about Speed Weeks as a whole. What has your experience been like? How has it been different from Speed Weeks last year coming in as a champion?
It's been just a little bit busier. You know, it seems like there's been a little more attention, I guess, paid to our team and probably what we're doing. But other than that, it's been the same. There's been maybe a little less practice than normal, but it's been a busy week. We had the IROC race yesterday and the Busch Series race today and the 500 tomorrow. So it's been a fun week. We've been running pretty good, I think, with our DeWalt car, and can't wait for the 500 and look forward to going to Rockingham.
How important are these practices here this morning? How important to you guys to get them in?
I don't think it's really that important, to be honest with you. I think Thursday was probably our best test. It was sunny and hot. We made some changes yesterday that seemed to be okay, and right now it's so overcast and cold outside. I don't know if we learned a lot this morning anyway. So to me, it's really not that important. We could go race right now if we had to, but if we had some more practice, we'd still go out and try some things and try to get a little more speed.
Matt, you seem suited mentally to be able to handle whatever external pressures or additional attention there may be as the champion. Is your mindset the same as last year this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as far as racing goes. I just realize that there's a little bit more to do and, you know, more commitments to fulfill and just more appearances to do that type of thing to try to take care of all the sponsors and all the fans and all the things we got going. So that's a good thing. It's fun to be busy when everything's going good for you. It's not fun to be busy, you know, if everything's going bad and they're asking you why it's going so bad. When you're talking about things going good, that's a good thing. So we've been working real hard on our race team, and I think we're going to have a lot of good things to talk about this year.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt.
All right, thanks.
You're looking ahead to Rockingham next week, and we are with NASCAR on Fox. The forecast up there in the Sand Hills for Monday and Tuesday, highs in the 30s, lows in the 20s. But then it returns to a little more racy weather by the weekend, thank goodness.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, we'll be carrying qualifying on Speed on Friday, and then the Busch race and happy hour on FX, and then the big show on Sunday on Fox.
Visibility improving as the cloud cover over Daytona begins to lift. Now, we will stay on schedule here, even if this practice is scrubbed. Final practice is set to begin at 10:30 Eastern Time, and it's all going to be right here on Speed, so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. The garage area very quiet right now. Drivers waiting patiently, waiting to go out on the racetrack. But right now, fog has rolled over this big old racetrack, and we are at a standstill. Kurt Busch waiting inside his race car. Jeff Burton standing outside his. So what do you think? Are we going to get this practice underway, or are we just going to go at 10:30?
I would imagine we just go at 10:30 right now. This practice would have been over, you know, right now. So I would imagine 10:30. That's good for us. We were expecting rain today. We were expecting not running at all today, so we put our race engine in and ran it all day yesterday, and we really don't want to put that many miles on it today anyway. So we're pretty happy with what we got. We're trying a few things on front end settings, just looking for a little bit more. But if we don't get any practice at all, we feel pretty good.
So if you do get out on the racetrack, is it going to be a deal where you just go out one time?
Well, what our plan was to go run 2 short runs. We weren't going to go make 2, 35-lap runs. We were going to go try to make 1 15-lap run, try this setup, come in, put what we really like a lot, go put that back in, and just compare the two so that we have done our due diligence to make sure we've done everything we can to have the best handling car of the Daytona 500.
Speaking of handling, how is this race car?
This race car is pretty good. We worked really hard on making the thing drive well, and on Thursday it drove pretty good. It didn't drive quite as good as it needed to, and then yesterday we made some really good changes. The track was better though yesterday. Everybody feels like their car was better yesterday. I think that's more indicative of how the track was versus how it was on Thursday. So to me, if you didn't make a big gain yesterday, you didn't make any gain at all. We felt like we made a big gain based on tire wear, based on the way I drove. Ran 38 straight laps, and car drove great, and I feel pretty good about it.
And you know what I'm wondering? Last night here at Daytona, Carl Edwards, one of your Roush boys, won the big old Craftsman Truck Series race here. He did the backflip on the front stretch there. If you win the Daytona 500, Jeff, what are you going to do?
We're going to watch Carl do a backflip. I can't do a backflip. I can dunk on a low goal. I can do that. If we lower the goal real low, like when I play with my 8-year-old, I can dunk pretty good, but maybe I'll dunk a basketball or something, but it's got to be really low.
Really low, because I think I can reach over. I think I can take you on the one-on-one.
Because you're tall doesn't mean you're quick.
Oh, how about that, boys?
Oh, no, wait a minute. I would like to argue that point about Bob Dillner. He may be quick at some things, but slow at others.
Here's what we anticipate will happen. And again, this is based on past practice and not a conversation with the NASCAR officials who are waiting out this weather. We were scheduled for 2 45-minute practice sessions. What is likely to happen is that once they can put cars on the racetrack, it will be for one extended practice session, which will be final practice. And the nice thing about having Speed Channel coverage throughout the day here at Daytona is we can flex back and forth with the studio and still bring you much of that practice live. And there is the weather flag. We can see it pretty fully now. Lake Lloyd is back in our field of vision. And so we'll have final practice for you, and the schedule here may flex somewhat due to the weather.
Yeah, and going back to Jeff Burton, we had him on our trackside show last night. There's one thing that I think I hear in Jeff Burton's tone this year that is a little different than years past, is he's been sometimes criticized about being too calculating or, just having a different attitude. Well, this year I think they have definitely got a get up and go. I'm going to be trying to win races aggressiveness that he hasn't had in a couple of years, and I think it kind of sounds good to hear him say those kind of things, and I look for good things out of this team this year. Even though they don't have a sponsor right now, I think they've got the right attitude.
Well, I'm seeing that in all the veteran drivers in the Roush camp. Mark Martin, Jeff Burton, of course, I think a lot has to do with the confidence with that Yates Roush engine package that's under the hood right now, those teams.
Listen. They're showing on the next television to the folks that 1976 finish between David Pearson and Richard Petty, and that still puts my spine at tingle.
Even 28 years later.
David Pearson moving down through.
There's a picture we've been looking for as we try to bring you NASCAR Nextel Cup Series practice for the Daytona 500. Lake Lloyd is back, and hey, there's a big grandstand on the backstretch. We couldn't have told you that.
Where'd that come from?
Exactly.
But this place never ceases to amaze me, Mike and Jeff. And we talked about this in the opening. Teams come down here and test for 3 or 4 days. They go to Talladega 2 or 3 times. They're in the wind tunnel, and it's all about how fast we are, how fast we can run. We need more horsepower. But it's amazing. Once you get to the 125 milers on Thursday, we heard it talking to Tony Stewart, we heard it talking to Jeff Burton, this place becomes a handling racetrack. And Jeff, it seems like more this year than in the past in a long time. I think a lot due to the new tire combination, but in particular that bigger rear spoiler on the back of these cars, making these cars push worse and not turn, especially off turn 2. It seems that's the biggest challenge for these teams.
It really is, Larry, and again, the reason for that is when NASCAR added that spoiler and made the adjustments to the body designs, I think a lot of these teams had the balance of the race cars upset, and what we're talking about there is the amount of pressure you put on all 4 tires is not where it needs to be right now, and a lot of the teams have had to do adjustments during the week to get their cars where the front tires will bite and turn like they need to keep from wearing these front tires out.
Well, what I want to know, Steve Burns, is all these drivers have $500,000 motor coaches, a lounge with DVD players and satellite TV up in the front of the team hauler, and all kinds of places they can go. Why are they just sitting hanging out in their race cars?
Because, Mike, it's like DW said, when you get a race car you like, it feels like your favorite jacket. This is their most comfortable place to be. Now, Jamie, let's talk about Speed Weeks for you. Let's see, you got flipped off by Dale Earnhardt Jr. once, a racy 125. Now we're right on the eve of the Daytona 500.
Yeah, you know, we just put our race engine in, and we're just really going to go out and just make sure that, you know, nothing leaks and that everything's okay. We tried to make our car better than the 125, but it seems like everything we do isn't helping. Finally, at the very end of the last practice yesterday, we did something with the front shocks, and that seemed to work, so we went just a little bit more in that direction today.
Now, Mike Joy wants to know how come you're not either in the team transporter or in the motor coach, but in the race car?
Well, because it takes so long to get in and out of this that once you get in, you might as well just stay. And, I mean, if not, I'd just be sitting back there. So I've just been hanging out, and there's a flag that I can see down here in turns 3 and 4, and a little bit ago I couldn't see it, and I can now. So I'm being hopeful in that it's going to clear up so we can get some practice in.
All right, and hey, best of luck in the Daytona 500 tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Got it.
I think his hopes are going to be answered. There's a look at one of those flags, and right now we're beginning to get a cloudy view of turns 2 and 3. So it seems a certainty that the Nextel Cup cars will practice this morning. The only question right now is when. We'll be right back to cover all that is not happening live at Daytona. Speed Channel coverage of the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series practice or not from Daytona International Speedway is brought to you by New Levitra. New choice, here now. Ask your doctor today. And by In Demand. Check out NASCAR in-car for free on digital cable during the Daytona 500. Michael Waltrip deep in thought as the fans are treated to a look at the 1979 Daytona 500 finish, the first ever on live network television, in which Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison crashed while battling for the lead in turn 3.
Yarborough crashed in turn 3 on that final lap.
Mike,
a serious discussion taking place just
I was there
below the bank of turn number 3. And now it appears we may have a fist fight. We see drivers and helmets, safety officials trying to jump in there and separate them as tempers have really flared after this amazing incident on the final lap coming into turn number 3.
The 1979 Daytona 500 is history.
Richard
and
Petty
and gentlemen, the winner
held off
Richard Petty.
Darrell Waltrip and A.J. Foyt to win that 500, and here's the king, still ahead of Petty Enterprises, and still very, very much not just a figure but a force in this sport.
7-time winner here at Daytona.
Here's Bob Dillon.
Well, people trying to kill time down here in the garage area, playing solitaire on the computer, part of Kurt Busch's team. And Kurt's another guy that's actually still in his race car, but, you know, Kurt, you can get out now.
I'm getting my sleep now because I didn't sleep at all last night after that IROC race, and especially that truck race.
That truck race was pretty awesome, but how about the Daytona 500 this year? Came so close last year, got a good shot at winning it this year?
We think so. I finished 4th in 2002 and 2nd last year. Maybe we can chop that number in half again. It's just a matter of the crew and everything going your way that specific day. I mean, the Daytona 500 is the elite race that we run in. It's the most prestigious, there's the most preparation, and it's just the race. I mean, you got to have the right car, the right equipment, and a lot of luck on your side, and maybe it'll go our way, maybe it won't, but, you know, I'm just trying to be one with my Sharpie Ford right now, just taking a breather and make sure that we focus on this last practice this afternoon and just polish everything up and be ready to go.
And one thing I thought interesting about Kurt Busch's car, he actually has a Sharpie inside the race car. He's prepared, guys.
And that would surprise you because?
Never know when somebody might run up to you wanting an autograph.
You never know. I think it's interesting. You talk about what's going on there inside the garage here. We saw Michael Waltrip. We talked to Kurt Busch. A lot of these drivers, they're kind of like they're getting in that zone. They're already starting to think about what is going to be happening tomorrow in this final practice so they can get on top of things.
Well, don't touch that dial. Mark Martin's at the ready, and so are we. We're going to turn things over into the Speed Studio in just a bit here, and then the NBC crew is going to come in because they use final Nextel Cup practice as their dress rehearsal for the Daytona 500, so they will carry you through the rest of the morning. And if the start of this practice is advanced, we'll have it for you here on Speed.
You know, guys, we always thank ourselves for the coverage we've had down here at Daytona. We thank our producers and directors. But, you know, I want to thank all the cameramen and the people that pull the lines, the runners, all the people that make these shows possible. They've been gone from home 2.5 weeks, and you know what? As soon as the Daytona 500's over, they're going to be packing up, getting to Rockingham, getting ready for NASCAR on Fox next weekend.
Very well spoken right there. And hey, Barb, thanks to all the guys up here in the booth. They've done an outstanding job this week putting up with us, and had a lot of fun down here at Speed Week so far, and looking forward to Rockingham and a great race tomorrow.
Final practice coming up later. Thanks to everyone who put all of these many hours on the air. We're going to go to the Speed Studio, and final practice is coming up. Stay tuned.